Hello Internet, and welcome back to episode 8 of Unorthoblocks Season 4. When last we left off, I'd finally gotten at least a bit of the facade of the house into place, had put in this nice little lovely skyboat, and the upper roadway. Which means we now have a safe-ish area to test how I'm going to do my foundation conditions through this city. And I think I have an idea. Now, it's the upwards sky anchor variant rather than the downwards pillars. But I think I'm happy with the general idea, or that my copper purple gradient through the city interacts with the aether flow. So you can have little copper buoys holding up the sky elements, like that draping cable there. We'll be putting another sky anchor there to hold up the cable in the middle. And it gives me an idea for how these foundations are going to work. Now, I've previously had that it gets more purple as you go down, but I think we have a point of inversion at the nominal ground level. And so when you're working down, I want to see how this looks. If we have our foundation piles start as purple pillars, cap off in copper, and then have upside-down lightning rods into end rods trailing away into the void. And of course, this is going to be much bigger than the little lamp bulbs, so we might encase the upper sections of the foundation piles in manifest aether, aka purple glass. So, let's give this a try and see how it looks. We're going to need significantly more end rods for this build. Do copper walls exist? Because this is not working for me. Oh, I like the copper end rod, or I like the end rod lightning rod bit, but that transition does not work for me. That needs to be fixed. Deep pillar foundations like this only get used when the soil conditions are poor and not providing much support. Given that we can't see the soil, and we can only observe that this has some interaction with the aether, I think that counts. But we need a better transition block to go in the middle here. Which means we need either a wall block or a fence block, and I will not take no for an answer. If we can't get it in copper and we can't get it in purple, I will invent some third thing. Actually, you are not free from the nether brick propaganda. No one escapes the nether brick propaganda. I'm still not certain quite that yet I've got it right, but you know what? I think that works sufficiently well that that removing the copper is actually going to make that look better. Or removing the copper and replacing it with even more nether brick is the correct answer. See, the end background noise agrees with me. Okay, let's tweak it a bit so that the pillars are at variable heights. Just to mix up how this looks from a distance and make me feel happier with it, even if from an engineering perspective that is a terrible design choice and would not be done by anybody sensible. So I think I'm happy with how these look. We're just going to need to grab some purple glass to add around the foundations. And of course we're going to be wanting not just these two pillars, but pillars in a comfortable grid all along the road. But having a bunch of these sort of pilings in the undercity layer is exactly what I was picturing. And those look so satisfying from a distance. I might actually keep this as unwaxed copper. Or not unwaxed. I might actually keep this as waxed copper because I like that little splash of brightness. And the brown wood even fits perfectly into this gradient. I love it. I'm here for this. So, I'll return once I have some of the purple glass constellation in place and like another 50 piles. And when we've extended the road properly. But I love how this city is starting to take on a life of its own that we can actually see all the way from the main end island. The lights in the distance. Sure, we can't see the full city, especially with my shaders. Okay, if we turn off my shaders, we can definitely see everything we built so far out in the distance. But that even with my shaders, we have rising out of the end fog, the city. And I love how elegant that looks from a distance. And the little specks of... Moi, I'm here for this. Beautiful. The granite building? And that might benefit from some shaders or something over the side here. But in terms of how my foundations look, 10 out of 10 would build again. Which means that I think we've got that basically sorted out here in the first few minutes of the here in the first little bit of the episode. We have a break here in my usual building out in the end because I heard Big Fish now has frog lights. And yeah, 12 diamonds per shulker sound good. Yes, it does. Yes, it very much does. So that's one set of 12 diamonds that I'm just going to add to this chest here, because if I walk off with the shulker boxes, I can't leave the diamonds in the shulker box. I hope that will be obvious. Anyway, I've paid the diamonds. I have my beautiful, beautiful frog lights, and I'll respect the fact that other people may also need to actually buy some frog light and not completely clear Big Fish out of supplies, however tempting it might be. And now, let's see if we can't make everything just a little bit brighter out in the end. Now that we have 2 whole shulker boxes of frog lights. So, I also came up with, last time when we were building here, a lovely excuse for why I wasn't going to work on the basement. So you want to guess what the first thing was I followed that up by doing? It was come down here and put in the basement. Thankfully, I have already done the hard part of water bucketing during the time when my sinuses were so congested that falling into the void would have just helped to clear them out. But we now have the open question of how does this actually connect with the added open questions of what's going on here? What should this view actually look like? How much of the underside of this road do I want to have be as visibly hollow as it currently is? Because I actually think I do want to have the road floating, but I don't think I want it to be quite as one block thick transparency as it would be if I left it exactly as it is, particularly around the rail line. However, all of that can wait, since we have a little bit of rail line to light up. And in my original plan, I was going to have the shroom lights over here, one block past nether brick, but I completely forgot about that while I was building this, so needless to say, that's not quite where they're going. I think I'm actually going to have the shroom light but I still want to have a lot of shroom light just lining my city. And we have about 1 block clearance from the rail lines if I open this up. So let's line the edge of the rail tunnel for a hot minute here. But just having this little extra light on the, and actually having the bright spot in the middle of the road, because the road brightens as we get towards the center. Marvelous. That said, I do think I'm also going to want to have, you know how I said that I want to have things extend down? Let's have any of the spots where we can actually see the underside of the road lit up for at least 1 block directly under the road, like so. And actually that gives us a lovely subtle glow and a distinct warning light when we start to get over here of do not walk over the edge, actually. Yeah, I'm here for how these frog lights are intersecting with my city. And yeah, having the bright lights in the city also be warning indicators. Warning. That's where the bottom of the lane is. Do not go any deeper. Warning. That's the bottom of a structure. Don't hit it. Warning. That's a building rising out in the distance. Also don't hit that. And warning. This is the start of the rail line. Do not walk here. It's not quite compatible with the houses, but anyway, let's go stash the rest of the frog lights until I am properly ready to put them into place. Because I just need to have my schematic to notch out where stuff is. We need to have my rough and ready schematic. Frankly, I probably should just copy it now for the really rough version, but I wanted to have all of these little details right. Right, and that's the transition. There would be sky anchors under those particular blocks. Okay. Which actually means that the pillar should just extend down an additional block. Drat. Because I've been using the pillars as the transition into the sky anchors elsewhere. Okay, so that's 2 deep slate blocks condemned to the void. Sorry, deep slate. Oh god, getting those into place correctly is going to be a nightmare. Because I just realized an extra issue here. Placement angle. So, how about we just casually don't? And we're going to put a granite foundation here in the basement. Sure, I should probably be putting an extra layer down for real basements, but this is as much basement as I'm willing to put into this city. We need to have the undercity infrastructure layer, and the closer we get to the void, the less maneuverability room I have. Well, let's just put in some of the lining the city garden boxes down here. Even if we can't actually get the underlayer that would be load-bearing for them. And that's chunky enough stairs. That's definitely chunky. And I think I do want to have like a wall here. Except, do I? Do I want to have a wall? Or do I want to have open area where we can just see into the Undercity? Choices. Well, let's leave it empty for now, and I can come back and put a wall in later if we want to. So I can go through and lay out the little garden plots. Which also suggests that when we've got these tessellating, this section of the garden actually belongs to the neighbor. Hey, Enderman, what on earth are you doing? Or rather, why are you falling into my void? That seems plenty avoidable. Now, I'm pretty sure if I put coral on top of waterlogged mangrove, that'll still behave itself, because it's a waterlogged block. But let's just have a sample here. Right, and if that's going to dehydrate, it'll probably do so by the time that we come back from having built another inventory's worth of stuff. You know what? I might actually just not put a floor underneath this. Like, I was going to put the deep slate tile underneath, but how about we don't? What if we just leave it like this? Just as mildly transparent. But with that little touch that still lets you know that there's a void underneath there. And you could fall through it any minute now. But yeah, that nice compromise between not having gardens, which would be terrible, and making this place feel way too safe, which would also be terrible. I built the city on the end void for a reason. And if we don't have the profound uncomfortable moment of looking over the edge when you come down these stairs, what's the point? Or at least looking through the floor and going, oh no, I don't like that. Which is exactly the sort of emotion this build should be instilling in you. And let's just also connect the stairs into the floor transition a little bit better. There we go. That just, it had been bothering me before. Okay, and you know what? That actually shouldn't be granite. We don't need to be cheapskates. There we go. That already looks much better, having it not be the granite, so that we can actually see things. Okay, and I have a limited number of these. So how about we don't? If we're going to do something here with those... Ah! Wrong height. There we go. Okay, we're gonna have to put flower pots over that. But I think that works. Okay, and that looks like test confirmed. Stuff will behave itself. Right. So, let's do another replication, this time on camera, of the technique for trying to build down into the void. Step 1. Clear your inventory of absolutely everything that is not accompanying you down into the void. Step 2. Step 1. Make sure you actually have the blocks that will be accompanying you down into the void. Step 2. Manually walk the long way. Let's actually clear out some of these other blocks that don't need to be in my inventory. Pick your diving location. Try to make sure that it's somewhere you will actually be able to get back to, while also being relevant for the dive that you're trying to do. Oh boy. Okay, and the netherrack does not absolutely need to be in my inventory, but it is a secret tool that will come in handy later. Step 3, take a deep breath and stop panicking. And if you need to, rinse, repeat that take a deep breath and stop panicking steps as many times as is required to actually stop panicking. Also, return for air as many times as is needed. Remember to take your deep breaths, and do not look at Enderman during this process, because you will have taken your hat off, because that is not absolutely necessary. That was way more work. And frankly, it needed to be, to do that little bit. But hey, it is what it is. That pillar, though, that one's gonna be worse. So much worse. Oh, well, there will be access paths and undersea scaffolding. So I can put those in later. We don't need to put in all of the anchors. And we're going to have to do a lot more foundation anchors for the main build. Because while that works for that front element there, oh boy, that's not going to work long term without having a bunch of these. Because that is way too short a pillar element for the entire massive structure above it. But for the doorway and for the position it actually has, that's fine. We can leave it like that. That's a suitably good anchor for that little element, and we'll scale it up for the bigger Undercity bits. And by the end of this, I'm absolutely 100% certain going to fall into the end void on one of these attempts. But in the meantime, we have nice little lights glowing in the distance. Which is exactly how I want this to be. Though, let's just turn off the BSL shaders for a hot second, so that we can actually see things. So yeah, with my shaders off turned, we just don't have the bright fog effect. The light is not impacting with the stuff around it, and it doesn't feel solid anymore. On the other hand, we can still see it, and that is a reasonable... Again, the pillar doesn't extend down far enough to feel like it's supporting the entire structure, but in terms of what it needs to support the stairs, yeah, that's fine. So, let's recover my stuff. Turn our horrifying fog back on. And watch as the city is in the distance vaguely gleam. And go back and do fairly massive gardening. It's gardening o'clock. And the individual houses get less fancy gardens. I'd have to make do with ordinary coral fans and maybe a single piece. A single piece of fancy coral if they're lucky. Actually, yeah, each of the individual gardens can have like maybe a single piece, and gardens shouldn't be included in the prototype, but I want to see how this looks. So the gardens are going to be included in the prototype even if they shouldn't be. At some point, I'm actually going to sort this shulker monster, and I'll actually be able to find things. And it'll be weird and uncomfortable. I really like how those decorated how the decorated flower pots intersect with the light underneath, and we have this little framing element of the light in the purple that just lines up so nicely with the purple color. Mwah. Okay, not everywhere can or even should have coral. So I'm going to go through and put in basically the entire bottom floor, and so I'm going to go through and finish up the garden, finish up the roof, put the missing trapdoors into place, and finish our basement. And then we can call this here as both the house and the episode being done.